Hey everyone, welcome back to Everyday English Pod. Today we're talking about something kind of universal,
Yeah.
It's failure.
Yeah, failure. That thing we all experience.
Exactly. We're going to
Yeah.
look at how to take those moments where you feel like you've totally failed and turn them into, I guess, pathways to success.
Right. Not just like getting back on track, but using those failures to actually do even better.
Okay, so when we hear that word failure, it often feels like the end of the road, right?
Yeah.
But what if we thought about it differently? Like maybe instead of a full stop, it's just a comma or even detour.
Yeah, like it's interesting how our brains work, right? When we think of something as the end, that can make us feel a lot different than if it's just like a temporary change of plans.
Right. It's like even with a detour, you still get where you're going,
Yeah.
maybe just by a different route.
Exactly.
And it's important to remember that failure is not this rare thing that happens to unlucky people. It's something every single one of us experiences.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. Everyone from super successful business people to like amazing artists, they've all had their share of setbacks.
Totally. It's part of being human. And honestly, it's necessary if you want to grow, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. When you look at like research about how people learn and develop, it's all about facing challenges and overcoming obstacles. That's how we build new skills and get better at things. If we never messed up, we'd probably just stay in our comfort zones forever.
Right. And think about Thomas Edison when he was inventing the light bulb. He had that famous quote about finding 10,000 ways that won't work. I mean, that is a seriously different way of looking at things, right?
Yeah, it's like each time something didn't work, he didn't see it as a failure. It was more like getting important data. Like, okay, this doesn't work, which helps you get closer to figuring out what does work.
And that leads to a question we should all ask ourselves after a setback. What can I learn from this? It sounds so simple, but it can totally shift your mindset.
Oh, for sure. Instead of beating yourself up, you start to think, okay, what's the takeaway here? How can I use this?
Totally. And something our sources really emphasized is self-compassion. Yeah, failure can be tough,
Yeah.
but it's super important to be kind to yourself in those moments.
Yeah, definitely. It's like you'd do for a friend, right? If they messed up, you wouldn't just be like, you're terrible. You'd offer support and understanding. You got to do the same for yourself.
Totally. Mistakes are just proof that you're pushing yourself and trying new things.
And research shows that being kind to yourself can actually help you regulate your emotions. So instead of spiraling into negativity, you're more likely to stay motivated and try again.
All right, so we're talking about reframing failure, understanding it's normal, and learning from it.
Yeah.
But there's also this big piece about your mindset.
Yeah, mindset is huge E, because the way you think about failure can either keep you stuck or help you grow.
So true. If you think of your comfort zone as this circle, failure often forces you to step outside of it. And that's usually where the real growth happens.
That's a great way to picture it. Because yeah, when you're comfortable, you're not really pushing yourself. But when you fail, it's like you get this direct feedback telling you, hey, this approach didn't work, time to try something else.
Yeah, it highlights the things that need work in a way that success sometimes doesn't.
Exactly. Success can make you feel good, but it might not show you the weaknesses that are still there. Failure shines a light on those weaknesses, which helps you improve.
And it can reveal areas you need to work on that you wouldn't even know about if everything was always perfect.
Right. Like if you never hit any roadblocks, are you really pushing yourself hard enough? Maybe you're just staying in familiar territory. The real learning happens when you step outside that.
And the more you face those challenges and keep going, the more resilient you become. It's like building a muscle.
Oh yeah, great analogy. Each time you deal with a setback, you're making your resilience muscle stronger. So the next time you face a challenge, you're better equipped to handle it.
And I think it also teaches you humility. Because you realize that even the people you admire the most have probably gone through tons of failures too.
That's so true. It reminds you that everyone's a work in progress.
And when you can admit that you don't have everything figured out, it actually makes you more relatable to others. People are drawn to authenticity.
Definitely. That humility can really help you connect with people because it shows you're human, just like them.
Okay, so one really practical thing we can all do is change how we talk about failure. Instead of saying, I failed, try saying, this didn't work this time.
It seems like a small thing, but it can totally change how you see the situation. It's not about you as a person, it's about a specific attempt that didn't go as planned.
Exactly. It's less about labeling yourself as a failure and more about acknowledging that this one thing didn't work out, which leaves room for improvement and future success.
And from a psychological perspective, it's about reframing that experience in your mind. I failed can feel permanent, while this didn't work this time is just a temporary setback.
Another helpful tip is to set small, achievable goals after a setback. Big goals can feel overwhelming when you're already feeling down.
Totally. Small steps make things less intimidating and help you build momentum again.
Right, and each little win gives you that boost of confidence and that feeling of, okay, I can do this.
Which is so important for staying motivated.
We also can't forget about reflection. Take some time to analyze what went wrong and what went right.
Yeah, that's key. Intentional reflection helps you figure out the specific lessons within the failure. It's not just about feeling bad, it's about understanding the factors that contributed to the outcome.
And it turns that negative experience into a learning opportunity. Instead of feeling discouraged, you're actually gaining valuable insights.
Right, and when you figure out those specific things that went wrong, both the stuff you could control and the stuff you couldn't, you're more likely to make better choices in the future.
Our sources also talked a lot about how important your support network is. Surrounding yourself with positive people who believe in you can make a huge difference when you're dealing with failure.
Oh, absolutely. When you're struggling, those people can remind you of your strengths and your potential, even when you're having trouble seeing it yourself.
Right, because when you're feeling down on yourself, it's easy to get stuck in that negative self-talk and isolate yourself. But having a strong support system gives you that feeling of belonging and reminds you that you're not alone.
And, just talking things through with someone you trust can help you process your emotions and see things more clearly. A mentor who's been through similar challenges can offer guidance based on their own experience.
And don't underestimate the power of persistence. You've got to keep trying even when it feels really tough.
Yeah. I mean, so many successful people have shown us that every setback can actually get you closer to your goal. The only way to truly fail is to give up completely.
If you keep going, you're so much more likely to eventually get where you want to be. And it's not just about blind persistence either. It's about using each setback to learn and adjust your approach.
Exactly. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't often comes down to their ability to keep pushing forward even when things get tough. It's about that never give up attitude.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about mindset. Now let's look at some inspiring, real-life examples of people who faced huge failures but went on to do incredible things.
Yeah, these stories are so helpful because they show that failure doesn't have to define you. It doesn't determine your future.
Like, think about J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter. Did you know she got rejected by like 12 different publishers before finding one who would take a chance on her book?
It's crazy, right? And imagine if she'd given up after those rejections, if she'd let those initial setbacks convince her that her story wasn't good enough.
She totally believed in her work and she kept going. And that persistence is what turned those rejections into the foundation for like a global phenomenon.
It shows you that just because someone doesn't see the value in your ideas right away doesn't mean they're not good ideas. Sometimes it just takes time and the right opportunity.
And then there's Steve Jobs. He got fired from Apple, the company he co-founded. Can you imagine?
So it had to be a massive blow. But instead of letting it crush him, he used that experience to learn and grow. He actually started other businesses and gained new skills, and eventually he came back to Apple and led them to even greater success.
So that period of time away from Apple, which probably felt like a huge failure at the time, actually ended up helping him develop in ways that ultimately benefited Apple when he returned. It's wild how something that seems negative can open doors you never expected.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that sometimes what feels like a setback can actually be a redirection towards something even better.
And then you got Oprah Winfrey. Early in her career, she was told she wasn't fit for television.
Can you believe that? Being told you're not good enough for the career you've chosen? That's rough.
Yeah, but she didn't let that stop her. She took that criticism and used it as fuel. And she ended up becoming one of the most successful and respected people in media.
And what's so inspiring about her story is that she didn't try to fit into some predefined mold of what a TV personality should be. She embraced her unique qualities, even the things others saw as weaknesses. And that's what connected with her audience in such a powerful way.
These stories show us that failure is not a permanent state, unless we choose to see it that way. It's just one part of a much bigger journey. And if these people could turn those setbacks into huge successes, it proves that it's possible for all of us.
Exactly. These are real people who faced real challenges. Their stories give us tangible evidence that those setbacks can actually be essential stepping stones on the path to achieving your goals, no matter how big those goals are.
Okay, so we've talked about mindset, strategies, and even some inspiring examples. Now let's talk about taking ownership of our failures. It's easy to blame other people or circumstances when things go wrong, But our sources emphasize how important it is to take responsibility for our part in a setback.
Yeah, I mean, psychologically speaking, taking responsibility can feel uncomfortable at first, but it's actually really empowering, puts you back in control. Instead of being a victim of circumstance, you become an active participant in shaping your future.
That's a really important point, because when you take ownership, you're not focused on things you can't change. You're thinking about the things you can do differently moving forward.
It's not about feeling guilty or beating yourself up. It's about taking charge of your actions and choices.
And when you do that, it builds trust with others. People see that you're willing to admit your mistakes and learn from them, and they respect you more for it. It's a sign of maturity and integrity, which are super important qualities in any relationship.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in a team environment, when people feel safe to acknowledge their mistakes and take responsibility, it creates a much more positive and productive atmosphere. Everyone's focused on learning and improving together.
And it's important to remember that taking responsibility doesn't mean you have to be super harsh on yourself.
Exactly. You can be honest with yourself without being mean to yourself. It's all about finding that balance between holding yourself accountable and showing yourself compassion.
All right, so we've talked about taking responsibility. Now let's dig into the idea of failure as a learning tool.
Yeah, it's not the end of the story, it's feedback. Like a roadmap that highlights the things that didn't work and shows you where you can improve.
And when you see it as feedback instead of some kind of personal judgment, it really takes the sting out of it.
Totally. Instead of just feeling defeated, you can start asking yourself, okay, what specifically can I learn from this? What adjustments can I make next time?
And when you start to view failure as a stepping stone instead of a roadblock, it can actually make you less afraid to take risks.
Yeah, it's like embracing the process of learning, which inevitably means you're going to make mistakes along the way.
It's a total mindset shift. Instead of avoiding challenges because you're afraid to fail, you might actually start to see those challenges as exciting opportunities to learn and grow.
Exactly. And that kind of attitude where you're constantly experimenting, getting feedback, and adjusting your approach is essential for growth in any area of life.
Right. So the more you do that, the more resilient you become. Each setback is a chance to refine your strategies, learn new skills, and basically prepare yourself for whatever comes next. And self-compassion is huge EE here too.
Definitely. It's normal to feel bummed when things don't go your way, but it's about not letting those negative feelings take over. Be kind to yourself, recognize that it's temporary, and then refocus on what you can do differently moving forward.
And you got to have optimism. If you believe that failure is just a detour and that you will eventually succeed, it becomes a lot easier to keep going even when things get tough.
Absolutely. Optimism gives you that sense of hope and possibility that can keep you motivated even when you're facing adversity.
And our sources also talked about adaptability. Being flexible and willing to change your plans when things don't go as expected is so important for building resilience.
Right. It's not about being stubborn and sticking to one path no matter what. It's about being resourceful and finding creative ways to reach your goal, even if it means taking a different route.
And in today's world where things are constantly changing, adaptability is a key skill for success, both personally and professionally.
So true. And when you combine that flexibility with a strong support system, you've got a really powerful combination for overcoming setbacks and turning them into opportunities for growth.
So after you've experienced a setback, what's the most important thing to do?
Take action. Even if you don't feel like it, just start with small steps.
Right. Small steps build momentum. They help you get unstuck and make progress feel more achievable.
And each small win, no matter how tiny, is proof that you're capable of moving forward, which can be really motivating, especially after you've stumbled.
So, for example, if you messed up a presentation, a small action could be just practicing the intro a few times or going over your notes with a friend. It gets you moving in the right direction and helps you regain your confidence.
Exactly. Those small steps create that feeling of, okay, I can do this, which is so important for getting back on track.
And it's key to set realistic goals after a setback. Break down those big, overwhelming goals into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Yeah, because when you achieve even one of those smaller goals, it gives you a boost of motivation to keep going. And those small victories are super important for building your confidence, especially after you've had a setback.
Again, reflection is so important. After you've had a failure, take some time to really think about what happened and why.
Yeah, like think about if there were any early warning signs that you missed, or maybe specific skills you need to work on. Reflection is all about learning, not blaming.
Ask yourself those constructive questions. Instead of just dwelling on why did this happen, try asking, what can I do differently next time? It helps you focus on solutions, and writing down your thoughts and reflections can be really helpful.
Yeah, journaling can be a great way to process your emotions and really see how you're growing over time. It's a tangible record of your resilience and all the things you've learned from those challenging experiences.
And developing a growth mindset is essential. That means believing that you can improve your abilities and intelligence through hard work and effort. So when you experience failure, it's not a sign that you're not good enough. It's just an opportunity to learn and get better.
And with the growth mindset, you actually become more open to feedback. You see constructive criticism as a way to improve, not as a personal attack.
Yeah, you're not afraid to ask for feedback, even if it might be a little uncomfortable because you know it can help you grow. And ultimately, all those lessons you learn from failure are only valuable if you actually use them.
So true. You have to turn those insights into specific actions.
So if you didn't get that job you really wanted, maybe you set a goal to practice your interview skills more, or to find a mentor who can give you some guidance. It's about taking that knowledge and turning it into action.
Because taking action is what bridges the gap between experiencing a setback and achieving success in the future. Every step you take, even the small ones, helps you build confidence and move forward.
And don't forget about persistence. Success often goes to those who just refuse to give up.
That's what separates the people who achieve their dreams from those who don't. It's not about avoiding failure altogether. It's about having that "I'm not giving up on this" attitude that keeps you going no matter what.
So failure becomes just another data point in the grand scheme of things. It's valuable information that helps you refine your approach and get closer to your goals.
Right. And we've got to remember that having a support system is essential. Talking to people you trust, friends, family, mentors, can give you fresh perspectives and encouragement when you're feeling stuck.
Those people remind you that you're not alone. They can help you process your emotions and see things more objectively. Sometimes just talking about a problem out loud can make a huge difference.
Yeah, and a good mentor might have even been through something similar and can offer advice based on their own experience. Don't be afraid to reach out for support. It can make a big difference in how you handle those tough times.
And you know what? When you're open with others about your challenges, it actually encourages them to be more open about theirs too.
Yeah, which creates a stronger bond and a sense of trust. You realize that everyone struggles, and you can support each other through those tough times.
And sometimes working together with others who've had similar experiences can lead to breakthroughs that you wouldn't have been able to achieve on your own.
Totally. When you combine your knowledge and resources, you can overcome challenges in a way that wouldn't have been possible alone. And celebrating those wins together just makes them that much more meaningful.
And in a professional setting, admitting your mistakes and talking about what you learned from them can actually earn you respect. It shows that you're accountable and committed to getting better.
Yeah, for sure. People admire that kind of honesty and self-awareness. It shows that you're not afraid to be vulnerable and that you're always striving to improve.
So using your failures to strengthen your relationships with others, both personally and professionally, is a really powerful way to turn those setbacks into something positive.
It's like taking something that could have been isolating and turning it into a shared experience that brings you closer to the people around you.
Now, I think we all know that the fear of failure can be a big obstacle. It can stop us from even trying new things. But what if we could shift our thinking and see failure not as a threat, but as an opportunity?
That's such a powerful concept. It's about changing how you see things. Instead of thinking, oh no, I might fail, you think, this is a chance for me to learn and grow.
Yeah, like every setback becomes an opportunity to learn something new, to get better at something, and to move a little bit closer to your goals. And when you start to see it that way, that fear can actually transform into excitement for all the possibilities that are out there.
And from a psychological standpoint, it's about retraining your brain to see failure differently. Instead of immediately focusing on the negative consequences, you start to recognize the potential benefits.
Exactly. Fear is a natural human emotion, but we don't have to let it control us. When you deliberately choose to see failure as feedback, it loses a lot of its power.
It's a mental shift that can have a huge impact on how you feel and how you act.
It's so empowering. You're not afraid to step outside your comfort zone because you know that even if things don't go perfectly, you'll learn something valuable from the experience.
And when you're not constantly worried about messing up, you can actually start to enjoy the process of learning and trying new things.
Right. And as you get more comfortable with that idea of failure as feedback, you might even start to feel curious about those challenges.
Oh, for sure. It's like, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this experience? Suddenly, you're not afraid of making mistakes. You're actually looking forward to the insights you can gain from them.
And remember, resilience isn't just about bouncing back from a setback and going back to where you were before. It's about using those experiences to actually become stronger and more capable.
Yeah, like working out a muscle. The more you challenge it, the stronger it gets. Every failure you overcome makes you more resilient for the next one.
It's all about progress, not perfection. And building that resilience takes time and patience.
Definitely. Big achievements rarely happen overnight. It's about learning to persevere even when things get tough. That's what builds true endurance and mental strength.
And that ability to keep going even when you face obstacles is often the key to achieving long-term success.
It's about staying focused on your goals and trusting that even though the path might be bumpy, you'll eventually get there if you keep moving forward.
And your resilience can inspire other people too. When they see you facing challenges, learning from them, and continuing to move forward, it can give them the courage to do the same.
That's a great point. It's like leading by example. When you show others that it's okay to fail and that failure can actually make you stronger, you create a more positive and encouraging environment for everyone around you.
Now, one thing our sources warned against is setting unrealistic goals.
Yeah, that's a recipe for feeling like a failure. Because if your goals are impossible to reach, you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Right. It's better to start with smaller, achievable goals and build from there.
Exactly. When you achieve those smaller goals, it builds your confidence and makes those bigger, more ambitious goals seem less intimidating.
And it's important to acknowledge and celebrate those small wins along the way. It's all about recognizing the progress you're making.
Because progress is progress, no matter how small. And those little wins can really help you stay motivated, especially during those times when you're feeling discouraged.
And when your goals are realistic, those failures don't feel so catastrophic. You understand that they're just a normal part of the process, not a sign that you're not good enough.
It's about focusing on the journey, not just the destination. And recognizing that there will be bumps along the way, but that doesn't mean you have to give up.
You know, we often talk about celebrating our successes, which is great. But what about our failures? I mean, in a way, every failure is an act of courage. It means you were willing to put yourself out there and try something new.
That's an interesting way to think about it. And it's true, when you try something new, there's always a chance you might not succeed. But it's that willingness to take risks that allows you to grow and learn.
So maybe we should acknowledge those moments of failure as evidence that we're willing to push ourselves and strive for something more.
Yeah. And that's a really important message to send, especially if you're trying to create a culture where people feel comfortable experimenting and taking risks.
Because when you start to celebrate the learning that comes from failure, it can actually make you less afraid of it.
Exactly. When you see mistakes as just a part of the process of getting better, you're less likely to let the fear of making those mistakes hold you back.
And the more you value the effort you put in, regardless of whether you succeed or fail, the more confident you become over time.
And when you're confident in your ability to learn and grow, you're more likely to take on new challenges and ultimately achieve greater success in the long run.
So to wrap things up, I think the biggest takeaway here is that failure isn't the end of the world. It's a normal, natural part of life, and it can actually be an incredibly powerful teacher.
Yeah, and if we choose to embrace those lessons, we can use them to grow and become more resilient, which ultimately helps us achieve our goals.
We hope you found this discussion helpful and encouraging. Remember to keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep believing in your ability to turn every experience, even the ones that feel like failures, into stepping stones that help you reach your full potential.
And remember, those setbacks, those bumps in the road, they're not dead ends. They're just detours that can lead you to even greater things if you're willing to learn and adapt along the way.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.